Hey everybody, welcome to, let's say everybody, people here on the call and people that are listening later, welcome to us talking about profiler coaching. Basically, we have a new profiler coaching program opening up, and we just want to have a quick conversation with anybody on the call that has questions, and I'm sure there's some information that will come from this. People watching later that weren't able to be on the call for time zone reasons and other specifics, things like that. So, profiler coaching is a second course. It's a full course, just like profiler training. It is 6 months long, and there's a ton of digital content. There's live calls, and there's a live event component to it. So it starts now and ends, this current class starts now and ends in November at the Profile Training Live event, within 2 days of that event to complete the program. And then I think there's like a call a week later or something like in December. But basically, that's the program in like the timeline in a nutshell. You can only join this program if you are currently or have already been a Profiler training student. So actually, I've already come through the program. If you're current students, like if you just signed up for Profiler training, and you're seeing this somewhere, you can't join yet until you finish your first class of Profiler training. This is an alumni only, like a 201 class, available only to Profiler training alumni. You have something you want to say?
No, I was going to, well, and to piggyback on that, the reason why is because we don't slow down. Most of the time in the content, in the digital portion, I just assume you know what all the functions are. We go through everything very quickly. And so if you haven't gone through profiler training, then it's easy to get lost. And the way that the content is separated out is that the digital piece is most of the how to be a coach content. It gives you different maps and models for understanding coaching practices and techniques. It helps you figure out what kind of coach you are based on your personality type. It helps you figure out what you want, like what demographic you want to be coaching using the HAP model, healing, achievement, and transcendence, and like the different ways that that shows up. And it gives you techniques to do coaching using all three of those brands of work, of personal development work. So there's healing approaches and models, there's achievement approaches and models, and then transcendent approaches and models. And so the digital content is primarily focused on how to be a better coach, who you want to be coaching and where's your sweet spot. And then the live call portion, which is primarily hosted by me, and then there'll be some color commentary and elements from Joel and I, are how to set up your coaching business, which is, of course, something that's a little more complex. Like how do you rate your packages? How are you going to be sort of, as Joel mentioned, setting your shingle out? What kind of advertising you're going to do? What kind of strategies you're going to do for outreach? What is your avatar? What's your specific avatar? So the portions of setting up your coaching practice happens more hands-on live through those calls. And then that is primarily what is focused on when you come to the live events. The 2 days that you do the live portion at the live events in LA.
Yeah. So, having kind of framed that, people here on the call and listening later, can we answer questions? I'm sure more stuff will come from the questions. And if you have anything to add to things me and Antonio just mentioned, feel free as people are gathering their thoughts for questions. You can type them in. Preferably you speak up and ask your questions live, but yeah.
Yeah, Morgan made a turning. Oh, never mind. I thought I saw a comment or a question that came in. Yeah, I think to add to what you guys are saying, what's really powerful about the class is that you get this hands-on experience where you're going out in the real world and you're going to be figuring out who do you want to serve as a coach, what kind of person you want to work with. So it really creates an opportunity for personal growth. A lot of students that have gone through come out a different person because of the experiences they have of going out there in the real world and talking to people and trying to sort through what kind of coaching they want to do. So yeah, that was just some commentary I wanted to add to what you two shared.
Awesome. So one of the questions we get often is, can I do this with profiler certification or some other class? We recommend not. Every once in a while, maybe a dispensation we made, but that would take a unique student. But most people, we recommend picking either certification or coaching as of right now. So I would recommend you choose one or the other because of the intensity of those. That's a general question we often get. The other question we often get is, I'm already a coach, will this help me? Like, I already kind of have a coaching practice. I kind of know the basis of coaching. What is this actually going to give me? I think what it is it's a way, basically it's more than just basic coaching principles, although those are some in there. But basically it's a way to take the profiler training experience or profiling itself and transmogrify that into a coaching scenario. So if you're already a coach and have coaching principles, I actually think that's a leg up. That's a good reason to actually join the program and the class, because this is going to just augment the skills you already have. Like, you don't have to go learn any of that stuff. You already have coaching under your belt. You get to just take the skills of profiling and apply them directly. So I think that's really powerful in that framework. And then also, in addition, with me and the calls we're going to do with me and the live event, there'll be other business elements you're going to get the benefit of. Some of the things that we've learned here at Personality Hacker that have worked from a marketing communication standpoint around the profiling, around talking to people about type and helping to coach them. We understand some business principles because we've done it. We've been doing this for almost a decade, building this company slowly sometimes. It hasn't always been fun, a lot of mistakes here and there. But ultimately, it's been a good experience of us really learning how online digital businesses work, how coaching works, how to create those great dynamics with your clients. I mean, many of you are either watching this later or here currently because of some of these things I'm talking about. So I think we have a lot of wisdom to co-collaborate with you on for your coaching practice. If you want to use this for more of a business context, let's say you're employed somewhere, you want to use this in your own internal HR department, I think that could also be useful there. Or if you have more of an agency model, you're not such an individual coach, you want to go and do work with actual businesses. And we've had people come through both our coaching that have taken the things we talked about and have applied those to business contexts, like in the broader scope of business. So those are some common questions we get. I'm trying to think other common questions we typically get that we can help answer for people. Do you think of anything, me or Antonia, on my Brady Bunch, left or right?
No, I think we've covered that I can think of at least.
So I do think that people oftentimes are curious about like how long the program is and how long it takes to get through. The digital content portion is approximately 20 to 25 sessions. And so you've got it around 25 to 30 hours of content in that, I believe. So the digital portion itself is that's about how long it is. So it's not quite as many hours as Profire training, but the content, especially if you've been through Profire training, is meaty. There's a lot of things that are like new models to have to wrap your head around, components that my strong recommendation is to incorporate into your life first to understand how some of these models play out with people. There are things that take a little bit of time to sort of sink your teeth into. So even though the hours of the digital content is shorter, the meat of the material is not. So there's a lot to go through and there's a lot to review. And that's oftentimes what people do. They get all the way through and then they review it, particularly components on transcendence and those pieces. So that's how long that takes. And then with the live calls, there's around 12 live calls, right? Not including the 2-day live event. Mm-hmm. So there's 12 live calls. And so that you're going to have to set aside about two times a month for these calls. And they can go on a little bit. Sometimes they're as short as 60 minutes, 90 minutes, but usually they take 90 minutes to 2 hours. And so in order to get the most out of the program, if you're deciding to participate in it, making sure that you have enough time to set aside for it, making sure that you have enough time to go through that content and then really sink your teeth into the meat of that content, as well as scheduling time to not only come to the live calls, but also implement what you hear at the live calls and really think about it. And in fact, the previous class set up their own Monday night call so that they not only had a call that we facilitated, but they would also have a conversation between themselves to almost like accountability and to ensure that they're doing the right thing for the business. So they took it a step further to implement their own sort of student call together, which I think was really, really massive for them. So my recommendation is that like you put a lot into it because then you'll get a lot out of it. And there have been quite a few people who have come in with a certain business model in mind and then left with a very dramatically different business model, one that works way better for them. And oftentimes, just like with Profire training, you understand your type better by the time you get to the end of it. Like one of the things we say is don't be surprised if you end up thinking you're a different type than you thought when you went in. Don't be surprised if your business model changes by the time you get to the end of it. Don't be surprised if who you want to teach and who you want to coach is actually a better fit for you and you just didn't realize it until you went through the process of going through Profire training or Profire coaching rather. So it's kind of a similar experience as Profire training. when you're just kind of implementing and taking in and understanding this complex system around type. It's a similar process, but at the end of it, you get something that is a model that can get you some resource back. So it's similar in that way. But again, don't be surprised if your business model alters as you go through it, because you'll get a lot more clarity and calibration around what it is that you actually want to be doing, the message you want to bring out to the world, and how you want to be structuring that message.
So I had a question asked to me one time when I was ready to join a program before, and the guy just asked me this question. He said, how sure are you, or how much do you want to join this on a scale from 1 to 10? I was like, I don't know, like an 8? But he said, okay, what would it take to get you to a 10? Like, what is it that you need to know or to shift to get from an 8 to go, hell yeah, I want to do this? That was a really interesting question when he asked me that, because I'd ask that to you. If you're listening later, you're watching now, what is it you need to know to go from, because you're probably listening, watching this, interested, because you're probably like around an 8, 9, maybe you're already at 10, you just need the link to go sign up. That's possible too. My guess is you need to kind of know, okay, there's some piece missing. I need something here. This is actually something I ask my team all the time, or people now all the time. There's friction points. Do you need permission, clarity, motivation, skill, or resource? What would get it so that you know which decision to make? Either to make the decision yes, or make the decision no. Because obviously you're watching this to make a good decision. So what do you need to go from an 8 to a 10 out of those 5 things to do that? One thing I will give you is a little clarity about this is we at the live event, when I said, hey, who's interested in profiler coaching? Seriously, I told them all about the program. There were like, what, 60 people, 55, 60 people? Over half the crowd raised their hands. I counted like 40, probably 35 to 40 people raised their hands interested in profiler coaching. So I started explaining, I was like, wow, we're gonna have a big profiler coaching class. And then I mentioned something about certification, only being able to do one or the other. And like most of those hands went down. And I went, oh, I see what dynamic's forming here. A lot of those people that just went through certification this year, there's like 20, 25 of them working with Melissa right now, are going to be ready for profiler coaching in the fall. And because this is a new program, and this is our like second formal time around, the class is going to be extremely small, meaning that we are going to be able to give much more attention to each person in this class than the class that's coming next, because I anticipate it's going to be a much bigger class. So this is probably going to be, I bet you at the end of the day, 10 to 15 people at the most. Maybe more. I'd love to have more come in. But my guess is that means that there's going to be, and we're still setting some things in motion. So while things are early, if you're interested, this is a great time to be interested, because like, I know that sounds sales pitchy. I'm not trying to do that, but I'm just saying if you are interested and you decide to do this instead of certification, I think this is going to be a really amazing class. And each class is different and unique and gets benefits that the other classes don't get. My expectation, though, is this one is going to have a lot of benefit. We're still in the setup phase of this. It's still early on. It's probably one of the smallest classes we're ever going to have around profiler coaching. So the hands-on attention you're going to get, the personal attention you're going to get, and just extra attention, because we're still figuring some things out. We're just going to give extra typically. As we're figuring things out, we might just do stuff just to do it, see what works. This is a great opportunity for you. So if you are a little bit on the fence, you're like, I don't know, is this a good time? If you're able to do it, the timing is great for this. You're going to have an amazing experience if you take the opportunity as it presents out. You'll still have a great time in November or next year or whatever. But I would say that this is going to be a very unique class that probably will never be duplicated again going forward.
Well, and to piggyback on that, there's less setup with this one than previous ones. We've actually kind of got it locked in. We've got a lot of what we figured out in the previous 2 classes structurally that really worked. So it's the sweet spot between going, okay, we know it works, and implementing that, but knowing that a lot of people are going to have to wait for the certification process. So we're going to have probably a lot more people coming in the next batch. So this is like the sweet spot of a lot more hands-on personal attention combined with, okay, like we have a lot of this stuff locked in. So it's actually like, if you can negotiate it right now, this is one of the better times to join, I would say. Yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. I would say just 2 other comments. One of the things that's been cool is I'm seeing that a lot of the alumni and students in the class end up starting businesses together, or they end up becoming really close friends. And so that's something that might happen in your class. Once you join, you might find somebody else who has a similar passion that you do, or complementary skills, and you might decide to pair together and build a practice together and split some of the responsibilities. And so that's also an added benefit of being part of a cohort, is you get to learn from other students, share your insights and experiences as well, and potentially partner together. So that's just another thing to think about as you're considering joining.
Cool.
Yeah. Morgan said that she switched from 70% to 110% sure when she gave herself permission and had others tell her that she does coaching unconsciously. So the thing was the permission. I think a big challenge when it comes to things like coaching is what is that phenomenon? I always forget the name of it, even though we did an entire podcast on it.
Give me a hint and I can help you.
When people,
is that imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome.
Oh, okay.
That's the word, imposter syndrome, Morgan. I think a lot of people have imposter syndrome when it comes to coaching. But what's nice about, and I'm glad you gave yourself permission, actually. What's nice about profiler training and going through it is I've realized that at the end of almost every single profiling session, it always turns into a coaching session. So, and not because the person that did the profiling session pushed it on the profilee, but because the profilee has a million questions about implementing the information in their life and what to do about it now that they have this powerful piece of information. So just having profiler training under your belt oftentimes turns people into coaches. Profiler coaching makes it so that you can formalize it and then add a whole bunch of other layers and texture on top of it so that you have more targeted and really high quality pieces of advice, as opposed to going like, well, I don't know how to deal with TI inferior. Like, I'll have to think about that. When you go through profiler coaching and then you have a lot of different other models and tools under your belt, then you have oftentimes ready models and ready concepts and ideas to help give people information during profiling sessions. And then of course you can formalize it. So yeah, that permission piece is a big one. And I oftentimes think, well, we're doing it anyway. Like you said, Morgan, you're unconsciously doing it anyway. Might as well turn it into like a legit gig. Yep.
So Morgan, what's like, it would be good to hear, like, so what is your vision? What are you hoping that what are you hoping the outcome of this is? You want to be a coach?
I absolutely want to be a coach. I realized it, I don't know, maybe like a week or so ago. And I just realized like, this is what I have to do. And once I realized that, it was just, I have to do it. If that makes any sense.
Why not just go and start coaching? Why would you learn football coaching? What do you hope that will do instead of just going out and doing it yourself?
I lack the actual implementation and the steps. Like I have trouble kind of putting the steps together to actually making this like a reality, I suppose.
So is it the motivation or the plan or the accountability? Or
it's the planning. I'm not very good at planning.
Knowing what to do and when to do it is what you're after. Okay, cool. Gary, I know you're still at work. I think this is like probably a bad time. A lot of people work on Monday.
Probably.
I just realized it's like we're rush hour on the East Coast.
Yeah.
If you could articulate, type in anything of what you're hoping. By the way, Morgan, I think this can be, why I'm asking is if it's not the right fit, I'm going to say, I don't know if this is going to actually serve you well, but I do think that a plan can come from this. Because I think we can work with you to get you a sense of what to do next, like on a timeline. And I also believe we'll keep you accountable to it, or at least we'll do our best to keep you accountable. We can't force you to do anything, but we'll be here as an accountability structure for you to go, crap, I got to call in a week. I got to better get on this. They're going to ask me about it. That kind of pressure helps a lot getting something done, because then it keeps the pressure on you for that front. So, yeah. So Gary, I don't know if you have in your position to kind of type out what you're hoping for profiler coaching, or what you would love to have in that. That'd be good to get from you. And then we can also, if you're watching this, it's on Facebook or somewhere there's comments, just put below what your hope is, and Antonia and me will come in here and can help like workshop that and go, ooh, actually that won't be deliverable. That is something we can do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we can workshop this as a good decision point. Because I genuinely want this. The last thing I want is somebody to join the program and it not work out for them. Like I want you to join. I want it to work out for you and be very successful for you. It makes us happy to have, like, that's successful for us if you're successful, right? So I want to make sure it's a really good decision. Anything else, me or Antonia? I don't want to keep people on if they just want to get out. There's no other questions. It's all good.
Yeah.
Well,
Cool.
I do have questions.
Yeah, please. That's what I want. That's what we want.
Right.
I just
As
figured
my
you didn't
dog-
have any. Go ahead.
No, I have tons of questions, but
Do it.
I was on mute because of my dog. So as far as the live event and the phone calls and everything, I guess I'm wondering, is there a structure set up for the phone calls?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nee. Sorry.
Yeah, so basically what we're going to do is you can think about each session as having 3 steps. The first step is we're going to talk about one key idea or concept, introduce a key idea or concept. The middle half, which is going to be most of the class, is having a discussion on that idea and how that applies to you and your situation. So this is going to be, we're going to be pulling some methods from, we're going to be pulling some styles and strategies from the Socratic method and using this time to help you understand how this principle applies to your situation. So that's the middle of that session, and then the end is going to be wrapping it up and talking about what the next steps are. So if there are any exercises or key steps that you need to take next, we'll discuss those, recap everything we talked about, and then adjourn for the day. Is that helpful?
Yes, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, we wanted to have we wanted to design it in such a way that there was a lot of room for students to have discussion with each other. What we discovered is the more dialogue students can have with each other, and the more we can facilitate that conversation, the more nuggets that the students are able to uncover, because you actually work through it yourself and arrived at that conclusion on your own, and we're able to hear other people's perspectives. So it helps to crystallize everything you're learning, rather than it being only lecture style, for example, or only discussion, where you might feel a little disoriented at the end. So,
yeah, I think that collaboration and the different perspectives it's what's going to be the key to me actually, stepping foot out into the world and doing this myself. So that's what I'm looking forward to, definitely.
that's cool. Now, to your question about the live event is going to be hands-on workshop. So it's going to be assessing where is everybody at that point. So some people will be working on slightly different things than other people, depending on their progress. But we're going to think about the live event as sort of an intensive. And so wherever you're at in the process at that point, we're just going to work as much as we can to help you get to the next stage and feel really clear about where you're at.
Okay.
For example, at the live events, was it Kelly telling me that me was like, you need to do this presentation on a slide deck? She's like, okay, I'll put it on my to-do list. It's like, no. Right now, open keynote, we're doing this right now. Like, you've been talking about it forever. You're not going to do it next week. You're going to do it right here, right now, and start hooking the slides together. She's like, oh my gosh, but she actually got a slide deck in the last, an hour or so, right? So he had her do the thing that she's been putting off. And other people were working on their websites. Other people were putting on lead pages to capture email addresses to be able to build a list. Some people were signing up for email services or writing there are a few emails that they're going to send to people as they express interest in client work. So it depends on what the person is actually working on or workshopping. But I would say the live event is you literally have your laptop open or your computer open, and you're in there working on the thing you should be working on together, and you're getting real-time collaboration from the group. So imagine almost like a boardroom table where you're sitting around, or if it's a bigger class, it'd be like a bunch of tables sitting around, and then everybody's workshopping together in real time, almost like a hacker comedy for 2 days straight. So it's a way to really get a lot of stuff finished up. And if a lot of that stuff's finished up, then it'll just be higher level things you work on. So whatever you are on the stage of that stream, that's what you focus on that day.
And it was also a lot of fun too, because this was the first time everybody met each other in person, or at least those who could come. So it was also a lot of fun. We had music going, we went out and had lunch together both times. And so it was just a lot of fun to be able to meet and interact with people in person and be able to see the connection and energy of the whole group collaborating. And so there's also that piece as well that's really fun.
So I should probably get a laptop, is what I'm hearing.
It helps.
I'm serious, it probably would help.
You don't own a computer at this point?
What's that?
You don't own a computer at all? It's just a phone or tablet?
I have tablet, iPhone, desktop, but I've been putting off getting a laptop. Well, I guess I can't put it off any longer. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would say you could use a laptop, but I don't want it to be a requirement to join the class. It just would be a benefit to have a tool probably. So
Right.
it probably would benefit you. Or at least that experience, the live event experience.
Yeah. Cool. Did you have more questions? Anything else?
I did, yes. As long as everyone has time.
You feel ganged up on, Morgan? Like 3 of us, like the Looney Tunes cartoon, we got a fork and spoon ready to eat you because it's like, we're just like, good question. Keep going though. It's good stuff.
Okay, awesome. I guess I'm a little bit eager to get started. And so I want to maximize like my lunch breaks because I get an hour lunch no matter what. So I guess my question is, what can I do during my lunch breaks to prep? Like, is there an audiobook I should be reading, another podcast? Do you understand what I'm asking?
What you can basically do between now and then to prep.
Besides the class itself.
You talking to prep for the live events or prep for when the orientation comes on Thursday? What do you mean prep for what?
Just big picture in terms of becoming a coach, I suppose.
I see. Like how do you, here's how I hear the question, so tell me if I'm right. How do I start to integrate the experiential learning that is profile coaching into my daily life, so it's not just a class I'm taking and something I do on a Thursday night where I join a call? How do I integrate this more into my daily existence? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay. That's a good question, actually. So to be to everybody. So you're saying you've got a lunch break available to you for an hour?
Yes.
You leave the office during this lunch break? You have to stay in the office?
I can leave, or I could stay.
I mean, what I used to do on my lunch break when I used to work at the zoo in Baltimore is I would go on my phone and write blog posts during lunch. And often I'd be working from my desk doing the same thing sometimes, not on my lunch break. That's whole other story. But yeah, I would be doing things that like, from the learning experience, you're going to have to probably have, I don't know how you learn, but my guess you're going to take in the evenings and stuff that's learning. So during the day, you have this hour of output. I would say to dabble and work on your website during those hours. Like, I know you're looking at the learning frame, but I would say use that as output time. Even if it's like writing a quick little like email you're going to like send out to a a coaching client potentially, or sketching ideas out, like work on the output during that time period. That's how I would potentially do it. That's to be hard out of the gate. Like, but I'm also wired differently. I'm TE tertiary, and maybe that's how my mind works. So I think we'd have to kind of co-create this. Maybe Antonia has some other thoughts as an NTP. She might have a way of that she would approach it, because that's how I would approach it as an NFP.
Well, which thing is more intimidating to you? Becoming a coach or setting up a business to become a coach?
Great question.
Setting up a business.
Okay.
That's kind of where my main area of concern is. So,
okay.
Yes.
So if the thing that is more intimidating to you is setting up the business, then the thing that is the scariest about business is not in learning about it, it's in actually implementing it, as Joel was talking about. So if you want to sort of be immersed in this for 6 months, it's not just a course you're taking that you're passively learning about. First of all, there's going to be plenty of, I'm assuming that if it's like the last time, there's going to be assignments that he gives to people. And so you'll have assignments that you'll have, like, it will be very important for you to implement in order to not just passively hear all the stuff, but actually figure out a bunch of stuff on a zoomed out perspective, and then zoom in and actually implement. A piece of this is, and I'll actually have Nee talk a little bit about this, because this was a lot of what got discussed in the last course. Before you start something like a practice, like a coaching practice, there's a lot of stuff to figure out that is like, what is right for you? What kind of coach are you going to be? Who's going to become your avatar? What is your messaging going to be? There's a lot of sort of high level things that need to be figured out. And then as soon as the high level things are figured out, or kind of figured out, when you sort of circle the drain a little bit and you think you're close to it, one of the best things you can do is immediately implement to see if you've got something that's viable. You start you start asking questions or surveying people who are in the demographic. You start getting feedback about how you're doing in certain things. You start starting to try to set up different components of your quote unquote shop in order to figure out which tools are right for you. And so a lot of it's not going to just be about like books you read and things you learn. A lot of it's going to be about figuring out high level things and then immediately implementing to ensure that the answers that you have, especially as an NCP, because NE works in a very emergent way. I would imagine that a lot of what you'll be using your hour and your lunch hour is to take some of the high level concepts that NE talks about and to implement in a way where the answers become emergent to you. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, can you kind of flesh that out a little bit more of a clear, less abstract way like I just did?
Yeah. Two things. First of all, the idea of business is very overwhelming and scary to most people, right? Business sounds like this big monster, and it's very complicated and complex. What we're going to do in the course is strip it all down and talk about the most essentials. And the best way to think about starting a practice is to imagine you're a scientist running an experiment. So really what we're going to be doing in the class is using principles for the scientific method to help you validate a hypothesis you come up with, right? And so the context of the class, right, if you're a scientist, you're coming up with a hypothesis on who you think your target customer is and what problems you think they have. So you're starting with that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to test that hypothesis. Does it actually hold true? Do those specific people have the problem you think they do? And are they willing to pay you X dollars for your services? That's the question. So then what we do is we go in the real world and we find people that look like your target market and we ask them a series of questions, consistent set of questions to figure out, is that actually the person that you want to serve? You thought it was, but once you talk to them, you might realize those aren't the people that I want to work with. I don't want to work with millennials. I want to work with Gen Xers, or I want to work with intuitive feelers, men, instead of intuitive, thinking men. So you start to get clarity on what type of person you want to work with. You also have an assumption on the problems you think they have. The only way to actually know is for us to talk to them. And then you come back to class and you share, hey, I spoke to 3 people that are in the target market I was thinking about, and I was shocked by what I learned. I discovered X, Y, Z. Based on this information, I'm going back and revisiting my hypothesis. I actually think the problem I'm best suited to solve is this one here, but I'm not sure, so let me go talk to more people. So think of it less as it is business, but it's probably not business in the way that we've been presented business. When we think of business, we think of fancy spreadsheets and just lots of complicated things, and it doesn't have to be that way. We can streamline it and keep it really simple. Probably the most accurate and enduring model to use is think of yourself as a scientist. And so as an INTP, right, with NE, it's actually going to be a really great opportunity. You going out and talking to people and figuring out who you want to serve is going to be really good for you to get some new data points and start to draw some connections. And you'll start to see a common path. And in the process, it'll become really clear on who your target customer is, what problems they have, and how you can equip them, and you get really clear on how much they're willing to pay you. And then once you have that information, then it's simply a matter of going out and finding as many of those people as possible. And this is where some sales comes in to learn how to close these people, and we talk about that in the class. Then once you've sold them and you know how to close them one-to-one, then you can start thinking about marketing, where you create systems to find several of those people and bring them to you instead of you having to go out and grab them every time one by one. And so this is a good model or framework to think about how you're going to build your coaching practice or business. You don't need an MBA. You don't need tons of degrees. Really, the most important thing you're going to learn is a few models to think about business. And with those models, you'll do a lot further or do a lot more than many people who have been MBAs, who have a lot of pieces of information about business, but actually have never distilled it down into a process. Is this helpful? I know that was a mouthful, so I want to pause for a moment and check in and see if this is what you were thinking about or looking for.
Yes, you're explaining it very well. There's still a couple unspoken bits and pieces that are in my mind. I'm not really sure how to articulate it, but basically what you're explaining now is kind of what the course is going to get into and all the details that I'm worried about. So I feel a lot more assured now, because you're getting into all the details that you need to put together a business, and you said business models, things like that. So I feel a lot better right now. Am I making sense?
Yeah, totally. And I think that me has an instinct for simplicity. That's the other thing is, one of the things I love about me is he breaks it down to make it accessible for people who think it's beyond their accessibility range. So as an example, he brought this idea to us one day here last June. He's like, maybe we should do like a personal growth retreat. I was like, well, we know this one person has a beach house. Maybe it would work. I don't know. And he's like, well, let's try. Let's ask her. I'm like, well, I can't. I'll ask her next week. No, let's do it right now. And I was like, yeah, but there's so much complexity. I'm trying to throw up all these objections, right? He's like, let's just try. Let's just see what she says. We call her. She's on board. And then we're like, let's send an email to the list. I'm like, well, let's send it next week. No, let's do it right now. Let's just make it simple. Just make a quick, easy email. I'm like, yeah, we got to have all our ducks in a row, know exactly how we're going to make the event work, when the dates are. He's like, we don't want to do any of that yet. Let's just keep it simple and figure out anybody's interested at all. We send an email, we get interest. So now we're like, okay, now we start hooking the formality up. Now that we know something is minimal viable product. Somebody wants this. It's interesting to people. Okay, now let's put some more thinking around the dates, the specifics, the things of this nature. So what it was is he's like, don't overcomplicate it till we know what we're doing first. We're kind of testing the water or trying something. It's been really helpful having me around on our team to help bring things down to a simple level. He told me something else recently. Don't get a lot of employees. Don't get a lot of complexity, Joel. Keep things simple. Keep things streamlined. And his thinking, that kind of thinking, as complex as his mind is, he's got a good way of making it tangible and accessible for everyone, which I really appreciate about me. I think that's one of his there's got a lot of superpowers. That's one of his superpowers. And in Morgan, I think you are poised, whether you do this or not, which I think you're going to do it, but you ask the right questions as an INTP. Basically, you don't have FE as a primary driver. You don't have TE to structure like to-do lists and stuff. So you asked a really insightful question for an INTP specifically. You asked an SI tertiary question. You said, how do I anchor something that I want to learn to do into a daily ritual or routine in my SI so I know it'll get done? So you're already asking the right question. So I don't know why I'm saying that, but I'm just encouraging you to say I think that you could hook that in and then make it an average discipline, because that's how I see INTPs and INFPs really making success, is when they make a ritual out of something, not just something they do here. It's like a daily practice and momentum. All right, cool.
All right.
I do have to run because I just realized it's the top of the half hour, so I got to get on to something else. Morgan, if you have more, I feel bad cutting and running, but I do got to go to the next thing. I'm so sorry. I just realized what time it is. If you have more stuff, can you send it over to us? More questions and things. Cool. And I totally want to answer your questions. And if you're watching and you got more questions, please feel free to lay those out like below. We can answer those as well, like if the recording piece. And we'd love to see people in the program. I really think profile coaching has been something we've had available for a while that we've just kind of kept on the shelf, quote unquote. We really advertise a lot or talk about a lot, but it's a very valuable program. We created like 4 years ago, the digital part, and we've been adding to it over time. And now we've added a bunch of live calls and the live component, and we just got so much feedback from the people that came to the last one that we're like, okay, this is something that we would be doing a disservice by not offering this course. So that's why I'm excited about it. So thanks, me and Antonia. We feel complete. We'll talk to everybody soon. Join Profiler Coaching if it's the right fit. Join Profiler Coaching. We want to see you there. And I think it'll be a really good experience for you. All right. So peace out, everybody.
Thanks, Morgan.
Thanks, everyone.